The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers around the central speaking platform. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy sat in those seats. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some glowed with their own light. They came in every shape and color imaginable. This was the Galactic Council, the place where civilizations came together to make decisions that affected everyone. Ambassador Daiho stood at the speaking platform. He was human, which meant he looked ordinary compared to most beings in the chamber. He wore a simple gray suit. His hair had turned white over his many years of service. His face showed the tired lines of someone who had fought too many losing battles. For 300 years, humans had been part of this council. For 300 years, they had followed the rules. They had paid their taxes. They had sent their soldiers to fight in council wars. They had shared their ideas and their technology. They had done everything right. But they were still treated like children who did not know better. Today was supposed to be different. Today, humanity had asked for something simple. They wanted the right to govern their own colonies without asking permission for every decision. They wanted to be treated as equals. The proposal sat on the council agenda as item number 47. It had been there for 6 months. When the time came to discuss it, Councillor Velmora did not even look at the document. She was from the Veltharian species, one of the oldest members of the council. She had lived for over 300 years. Her skin was purple and covered in glowing patterns. She sat in one of the highest seats, showing her importance. "The human proposal is rejected," she said. Her voice was loud and clear. "They are too young to govern themselves properly. Perhaps in another few centuries they will be ready." Other councillors nodded. Some laughed. A few made jokes about humans being impatient like all young species. No one asked Daiho what he thought. No one cared that humans had built successful colonies for hundreds of years. The decision was made in less than 2 minutes. Then came the real insult. The council passed a new resolution. Resolution 88447. It placed new limits on human research and expansion. Humans could not study certain technologies anymore. They could not settle new systems without special permission. They could not build military ships above a certain size. The restrictions were long and detailed. Daiho listened to every word. His face showed nothing. Inside, something broke. Not anger exactly. Something colder, something final. He had spent 40 years as ambassador. He had believed that patience would work. He had told his people to keep trying, to keep proving themselves. He had been wrong. When the vote finished, Daiho pressed the button to request speaking time. The room went quiet. This was unusual. Humans rarely spoke up after losing a vote. "I have an announcement," Daiho said. His voice was calm. "Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will leave council space within 90 days. We will honor existing trade contracts until they expire. We will remove all our citizens, all our property, and all our technology. We will pay any outstanding debts. Then we will be gone." The silence lasted only a second. Then the laughter started. Velmora laughed the loudest. "You cannot survive without the council," she said. "You depend on our trade routes. You depend on our protection. You will come back begging within 10 years. Other councillors joined in. They made jokes about humans being too proud. They said it was a dramatic gesture that would fade. Some even made bets about how long it would take for humans to apologize and ask to return. Daiho did not argue. He simply bowed once to the chamber and walked out. He never looked back. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. Most people did not take it seriously. Humans had been part of the council for so long. They had built lives across 800 systems. They had businesses and homes and families settled in council space. Surely they would not really leave, but they did. Within 2 days, every human ship began moving. Admiral Minho coordinated the withdrawal from his flagship. He was a military man who believed in planning and precision. He had prepared for this day for months just in case. Now his plans went into action. Colony ships launched from planets. Transport vessels loaded supplies. Families packed their belongings. Human soldiers resigned their positions in council military forces. Human doctors left their hospitals. Human teachers closed their schools. Human merchants shut down their stores. They took everything. Prefabricated buildings were disassembled and loaded onto ships. Power generators were removed. Communication arrays were dismantled. Anything that could be moved was taken. Anything that could not be moved was destroyed. Humans left nothing behind that other species could use. Dr. Hyunwoo supervised the evacuation of research stations. He was a scientist who specialized in dark matter research. The council had banned his work, calling it too dangerous. Now he made sure every piece of data was deleted from council databases. Every prototype was loaded onto transport ships. The council would not benefit from human discoveries anymore. The galaxy watched in growing surprise as system after system emptied. Within a month, 400 systems were abandoned. Within 2 months, 700. The exodus was total and complete. 200 billion humans were on the move, heading toward unknown space beyond the galactic rim. Some alien species tried to stop them. They offered better deals. They apologized for the council's behavior. They begged humans to stay, but the decision was made. Humanity was leaving, and nothing would change their minds. On the 89th day, Daeho made one final broadcast. He stood on the bridge of the last human ship in council space. Behind him, empty stations floated in the dark. Empty colonies showed no lights. Empty trade posts drifted silent. "We thank those who treated us with kindness," he said. "We forgive those who treated us with contempt. We wish the council well in their future. But we will not return. Humanity has chosen a different path. We will build our own future on our own terms. Goodbye." The transmission ended. The ship's engines powered up. Daeho gave the order to jump. The vessel vanished into the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. Behind it, 800 systems sat empty. The council had pushed humanity out. Now they would learn what that really meant. In the council chamber, Velmora sat in her high seat and smiled. She told everyone that humans would be back soon. They would realize their mistake. They would beg for forgiveness. She was certain of this. She had lived for centuries and seen many young species make foolish choices. High Arbiter Korthex, the supreme leader of the council, said nothing. He was older than Velmora by 200 years. He had seen many things in his long life. He looked at the empty human seat and felt something he had not felt in decades. Doubt. The humans were gone. The galaxy was quiet, and somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, 200 billion humans were building something new, something the council would not see coming, something that would change everything. 10 years passed like water through fingers. The Galactic Council continued its work as it always had. Meetings were held. Laws were passed. Disputes were settled. Life went on. Most people had forgotten about the humans. They were just another species that had come and gone from the great stage of galactic politics. Trade Minister Jiho sat in his office on Nexus Station reviewing economic reports. He was Veltharian, like Councillor Velmora, but younger at only 156 years old. His job was to track trade and commerce across the galaxy. Usually the numbers made sense. This year they did not. The galactic economy had shrunk by 7%. That was unusual but not alarming by itself. Markets went up and down. But when Jiho looked deeper, he found strange patterns. Shipping costs were up by 23%. Manufacturing efficiency was down across all sectors. Medical research had stalled. Agricultural yields were falling even though nothing had changed in farming methods. Jiho made charts and graphs. He ran calculations. He checked his data 3 times to make sure it was correct. Then he requested a meeting with the full council. He brought his reports and presented them carefully. "These are normal fluctuations," Velmora said before Jiho finished talking. "Markets change. This is nothing to worry about." But Jiho had noticed something else. Every sector showing problems had once involved humans. Systems that humans had lived in were performing worse than expected. Trade routes that humans had managed were now inefficient. Industries where humans had worked were struggling. The pattern was clear once you looked for it. "I believe the human departure is affecting our economy," Jiho said carefully. He knew this would not be popular. They contributed more than we realized. The council dismissed his concerns. Humans were a small species. They had been only 300 years in the council. Surely they could not have made such a difference. Jiho was overthinking things. The economy would recover on its own. On the other side of the galaxy, technician Suhyun was having a different kind of problem. She was Praxian, a species known for their technical skills. She worked in the maintenance department of Nexus Station, keeping all the systems running smoothly. Lately, that job had become much harder. Power distribution was acting strange. Life support systems were less efficient. Water recycling took longer. Waste management was backing up. None of the problems were critical by themselves. But together, they meant Soo-hyun and her team were working 12-hour days instead of 8. They were always fixing something. The strange part was that nobody could figure out why. The systems looked fine. The designs were correct. Everything should work. But it did not work as well as it used to. Soo-hyun started digging through old maintenance logs trying to find answers. She found notes from 15 years ago, small improvements made by a human engineer named Ji-woo. Then more notes from 20 years ago. A human technician named Sunmi had optimized the water system. Further back, 30 years ago, a human doctor named Kyung-soo had improved the air filtration. The humans had not made big changes. They had not taken credit or asked for recognition. They had just quietly made everything work a little better. A small improvement here, a minor optimization there. Over 300 years, these tiny changes had added up. Now with the humans gone, those improvements were slowly failing. Soo-hyun brought this to her supervisor. Her supervisor brought it to the station commander. The station commander brought it to the council. Teams were assigned to study the problem. They discovered the same pattern everywhere. Humans had touched almost every major system in the galaxy and made it better. Without humans maintaining those improvements, everything was getting worse. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Captain Yoonji commanded an exploration ship called the Far Seeker. She was Krell, a species that loved exploration and adventure. Her mission was to map the outer edges of the galaxy where few ships ventured. Her sensors detected something impossible. A massive energy signature in deep space beyond the galactic rim. Energy on that scale should not exist so far from any star or civilization. Yoonji ordered her ship to investigate. What they found took her breath away. A structure floated in the void. It was partially built but already larger than any station the council had ever constructed. The architecture was unlike anything she had seen before. But there were human markings on some of the completed sections. Before Yoonji could get closer, a ship appeared. It moved faster than anything in the council fleet. Its design was smooth and advanced. It stopped between the Far Seeker and the structure. A transmission came through in perfect Krell language. "You have entered human space. Turn back, this is your only warning." The voice was human. It was calm but firm. Yoonji knew she should obey. But she was a scientist as much as a captain. She asked her sensor officer to gather as much data as possible before they left. The readings were incredible. The human ship used some kind of dark matter propulsion. The structure was built with materials that should not be possible to create. Energy generation was at levels that broke everything the council knew about physics. All of this had been built in just 10 years. The human ship waited patiently. It did not attack. It did not threaten. It just watched. Yoonji gave the order to turn around. The Far Seeker headed back to council space. The human ship vanished, moving so fast that sensors lost track of it instantly. Yoonji sent her report to the council immediately. The response was swift. Every counselor wanted to see the data. Scientists studied the readings for weeks. Their conclusions were unanimous and terrifying. Humans had not just survived without the council. They had advanced beyond anything the council could do. The technology showed that humans were manipulating dark matter on a massive scale. Dark matter made up most of the universe but was barely understood. The council had spent thousands of years studying it with little progress. Humans had mastered it in a decade. That should be impossible. But the evidence was clear. High Arbiter Cortex called an emergency meeting. The chamber was full. Everyone wanted to know what this meant. Velmora tried to downplay the discovery. Perhaps the readings were wrong. Perhaps humans had found old technology from another civilization. Perhaps they were still weak and just putting on a show, but the scientists disagreed. The technology was definitely new. It was definitely human, and it was definitely more advanced than anything the council possessed. One scientist calculated that if humans continued advancing at this rate, they would surpass every council species within another 20 years. The mood in the chamber changed. The laughter from 10 years ago was gone. In its place was something else. Uncertainty, doubt. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council felt worried about another species. A species they had rejected. A species they had mocked. A species they had driven away. Cortex looked at Velmora. She would not meet his eyes. Her certainty was gone. The humans were supposed to come back begging. They were supposed to need the council. They were supposed to realize they had made a mistake. Instead, humanity was thriving in ways no one had imagined. And the council was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. But they did not know how terrible. Not yet, that lesson was still to come. 25 years had passed since humanity left. What started as small problems had become a crisis. The galactic economy was failing. Systems were breaking down. And now there was a new threat that made everything worse. Ambassador Taeyong was young for a diplomat, only 42 years old. He was Arcturian, a species known for their intelligence and calm thinking. The council had given him a difficult job. He had to figure out exactly what went wrong when humans left. He spent 3 years studying old records and interviewing people who remembered working with humans. His report was long and detailed. It showed that humans had been involved in almost everything important. They had improved trade routes, making shipping 12% faster. They had developed better medical treatments that increased survival rates across hundreds of species. They had enhanced farming methods that produced more food. They had refined manufacturing to create less waste. Each improvement had seemed small at the time. Human engineers making a minor adjustment here. Human scientists suggesting a better method there. Human doctors sharing a new technique. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that demanded attention. Just steady, quiet progress that made everything work better. Taeyong calculated that these improvements had increased efficiency across the entire galaxy by 15%. That was enormous. It meant food was cheaper. Medicine was better. Travel was faster. Manufacturing was cleaner. Everything cost less and worked better because humans had been there. Now those improvements were failing. Without humans to maintain them, systems were reverting to old ways. The galaxy was losing 15% of its efficiency. That sounded like just a number, but it meant real suffering. Food shortages, medicine shortages, higher costs, longer travel times, more waste, more problems. Taeyong presented his report to the council. The chamber was silent when he finished. Nobody laughed now. Nobody dismissed the problem as minor. They could all see the disaster unfolding around them. "We need to bring them back," Taeyong said simply. "The humans were more important than we realized. Without them, the council is failing." But there was an even bigger problem. General Jiwon commanded the council defense forces. She was Kryn, a warrior species that had defended the galaxy for centuries. She came to the council with alarming news. The Scorvan marauders were attacking. The Scorvan had always been a problem. They were raiders who attacked frontier systems and stole resources, but they had never been a serious threat. The council military had always been strong enough to keep them contained. That was changing. Jiwon showed battle reports. The Scorvan were winning. Their raids were going deeper into council space. Their technology was improving faster than council defenses could adapt. Systems that should be safe were being attacked. People were dying. How is this possible? Korthex asked. "We have more ships. We have better weapons. Why are we losing?" Jiwon explained the problem. Human military officers had trained council forces in modern tactics. Small unit coordination, rapid response protocols, asymmetric warfare techniques. These methods had been so successful that everyone used them. They became standard across the military. Nobody remembered that humans had invented them. Human engineers had also designed key components in weapon systems. Not entire weapons, just small parts. Targeting systems, power regulators, shield generators. Each piece was small, but together they made council weapons 22% more effective. Without humans maintaining and improving these systems, weapons were getting worse. The Scorvan had noticed. They adapted their tactics. They exploited weaknesses. What used to be an irritation was becoming an existential threat. Jiwon needed more ships, more weapons, more soldiers, but the economic crisis meant the council had no money to give her. "We are abandoning frontier systems," Jiwon said quietly. "We cannot defend them anymore. We are pulling back to protect core worlds, but even that may not be enough." The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some members blamed Jiwon for poor leadership. Others demanded new strategies. Some insisted the economic crisis be fixed first. Everyone had opinions. Nobody had solutions. Then Dr. Young-ho presented his research. He was a Veltharian scientist who had studied the data from human space. What he found was both amazing and frightening. Humans had achieved breakthroughs that should be impossible. They had mastered dark matter manipulation. They could generate power at levels that broke the laws of physics as the Council understood them. They could travel faster than any Council ship. They could build structures on scales that should not be possible. All of this accomplished in just 25 years. How did they do this? Vellamora asked. She looked old now. The confidence she once had was gone. Young-Ho explained that the Council had actually caused this. When they banned human dark matter research, they thought they were protecting the galaxy from dangerous experiments. Instead, they forced humans to focus entirely on that one field. When humans left, they were free to pursue their research without restrictions. They put all their energy and genius into solving dark matter problems. The result was explosive advancement. Human scientists working together without bureaucracy or limitations had achieved in decades what the Council could not do in millennia. They were not just ahead. They were so far ahead that catching up seemed impossible. If they continue at this rate, Young-Ho said, humans will reach technology levels comparable to the ancient progenitors within another 25 years. The progenitors were legendary. They were the species that built the jump gate network thousands of years ago. Their technology was so advanced that modern species could barely understand it. The idea that humans might reach that level was terrifying. Korthek stood up. He was very old now, nearly 600 years. He had led the Council through many crises. But this was different. This was not an external threat. This was a wound the Council had inflicted on itself. We need to face the truth, he said. His voice was tired but firm. We rejected humans because they were young. We restricted them because we feared their potential. We mocked them because they dared to want equality. We were wrong about everything. Vellamora stood as well. She had opposed every attempt to reconsider the human departure. But now she looked at the empty seat where Deho once sat and felt something she had never felt before. Regret. I was wrong, she said. The words were difficult for her. Humans were not weak. They were patient. They were not dependent on us. They were generous with us. They were not inferior. We were too blind to see their value. The Council voted to send a diplomatic mission to human space. They would apologize. They would ask humans to return. They would offer anything humans wanted. Ambassador Taeyong volunteered to lead the mission. He knew it might be futile. Humans had built a new life without the Council. They had become powerful and independent. They had every reason to say no, but the Council had to try. The alternative was watching their civilization crumble. The galaxy needed humans. The terrible irony was that the Council only realized this after pushing them away. They had created their own disaster through arrogance and prejudice. Taeyong prepared for his mission knowing he faced the hardest negotiation in galactic history. How do you convince someone to help you after you spent centuries telling them they were not good enough? How do you ask for forgiveness when your actions showed such contempt? How do you bring back people who are happier without you? These questions haunted him as his ship headed toward human space. 30 years after humanity left, Ambassador Taeyong's ship crossed into human territory. The journey had taken months, following the old routes humans had used to leave Council space, following whispers and rumors about where humanity had gone. Now he could see what they had built, and it took his breath away. Human space was vast. They controlled over 2,000 systems. Massive stations orbited strategic locations. Each one was larger than Nexus Station. Fleets patrolled the borders with ships that looked more like art than weapons. Sleek, powerful, beautiful. Everything spoke of confidence and strength. But the most impressive sight was the ring world. It circled a star like a ribbon of light, an artificial habitat so large it could hold billions of people. Taeyong had seen pictures of ring worlds in ancient texts about the progenitors. He never thought he would see a real one. Yet here it was, built by humans in just 3 decades. A human vessel approached. It was small but moved with precision. The communication came in perfect Arcturian. The translator was so good that Taeyong almost forgot he was talking to a different species. Council ship, we acknowledge your diplomatic credentials. Follow our course to Border Station 12. Ambassador Mirai will meet you there. Taeyong noticed they did not invite him to the ring world. They did not offer a tour of their territory. They directed him to a modest station at the very edge of human space. The message was clear. The Council was not trusted. They would talk, but on human terms. Border Station 12 was small compared to the massive structures Taeyong had seen. But it was well maintained and comfortable. When he and his team boarded, they were greeted by Ambassador Mirai. She was young, only 34 years old. She had been born after the Exodus. She had never lived under council rule. This was important. She represented a generation that owed the council nothing. Mireille was professional and polite. She offered refreshments and showed them to a conference room. Everything was cordial, but there was a distance in her eyes, not anger, not hostility, just the cool assessment of someone meeting strangers who once hurt her family. Ambassador Taeyong, she said, we know why you are here. The council wants humanity to return. Let us save time. The answer is no. Taeyong had expected this. He opened his case and removed a formal document. The council's official apology. It was written on traditional paper, signed by every member of the High Council. It acknowledged every wrong committed against humanity. It admitted the centuries of disrespect and the crushing restrictions. It begged forgiveness. Mireille read it carefully. When she finished, she set it down gently. This is well written, she said. I am sure it was difficult for the council to admit these things. But words cannot undo 3 centuries of humiliation. An apology is appreciated but insufficient. Taeyong tried his prepared arguments. He explained the economic crisis, the military weakness, the system's failures. He described how the galaxy was suffering without human contributions. He painted a picture of a civilization in decline that needed humanity's help to survive. Mireille listened patiently. Then she responded with devastating clarity. The council's suffering is unfortunate, but it is not our responsibility. You treated us as inferior for 300 years. You restricted our freedom. You denied us equality. You laughed when we left. Now you want us back because you need us. That is not a relationship. That is exploitation. She stood and walked to a window. Outside, stars blazed against the darkness of space. Do you know what leaving the council did for humanity? She asked. It freed us. For the first time in our history, we could make our own choices. No bureaucracy to navigate. No permissions to obtain. No prejudice to overcome. We thrived. Taeyong tried different approaches. He offered humanity a permanent seat on the High Council with full voting rights. Mireille declined. He proposed technology sharing agreements. She said humanity had nothing to gain. He suggested military alliances. She reminded him that human space was well defended and needed no help. Every offer was politely but firmly refused. Humanity had built something better than the council. They were independent and powerful. They controlled their own destiny. Why would they surrender that to rejoin a system that had never valued them? That evening, Mireille invited Taeyong to a private dinner. Just the two of them. The conversation was more relaxed. Taeyong asked the question that had been bothering him. Are you angry with us? Does humanity hate the council? Mireille shook her head. No, we are disappointed. The galaxy had such potential. Different species working together, sharing knowledge and culture, building something greater than any single civilization could achieve. That was the dream. But the council let ancient prejudices poison everything. She told him about the human perspective, how humans had genuinely wanted to be part of something larger, how they had contributed not for recognition, but because they believed in the council's ideals, how they had hoped that patience and merit would eventually earn them respect, how that hope died slowly over centuries until there was nothing left but the decision to leave. We do not want revenge, Mireille said. We do not want to dominate the council or conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to build our future. Is that so difficult to understand? Taeyong understood perfectly. That made it worse. He represented a council that had thrown away something precious through arrogance and stupidity. There was no way to fix that. No compensation that could make it right. But Mireille was not finished. However, she said carefully, if the council is willing to truly change, we might consider a different relationship, not as members and rulers, as equals. 2 independent civilizations working together by choice, not obligation. Taeyong leaned forward. This was the first hint of possibility. What would that require? Real reform, Mireille said. The council must judge species by their contributions, not their age. Voting rights must be equal for all members. Technology development must be free from arbitrary restrictions. Decisions must be based on merit, not tradition. If the council can do that, humanity would be open to cooperation. Before Taeyong left, he met with Admiral Seo-jun. The human military commander was older, probably in his 60s. He had the bearing of someone who had spent decades making hard decisions. He provided Taeyong with detailed intelligence about the Scorvan threat. The data was shocking. The Scorvan were not just raiders anymore. They were building an invasion force. Thousands of ships, planet-killer weapons, the capacity to overwhelm Council defenses completely. It would happen within 5 years. Why are you telling me this? Taeyong asked. You have no obligation to help the Council. Seojin's answer was simple. Because innocent people will die. People who never had a say in how the Council treated humans. We may have left the Council, but we still care about those lives. This information might help save them. That gesture meant everything. Humans were still generous despite their grievances. They still helped despite being wronged. They still cared despite being rejected. This was who they were. And the Council had thrown it all away. Taeyong returned to Council space carrying humanity's message and their intelligence. He also carried a heavy heart. He had seen what humans built. He had met the new generation that knew nothing of Council membership. He understood that bringing them back was impossible, but perhaps something else was possible. A new relationship based on respect and equality, a partnership rather than membership. It would require the Council to change in fundamental ways. The question was whether they could change before the Scorvan destroyed everything. Time was running out. 40 years after humanity left, the Scorvan invasion began. It was not a raid. It was not a skirmish. It was total war. Thousands of warships poured into Council space like a dark wave. Behind them came planet-killer weapons and swarms of attack drones. System after system fell. Millions died. Millions more fled as refugees. General Jiwon fought with everything she had. She was older now, her warrior spirit undimmed despite her age. She coordinated defense forces across dozens of systems. She moved fleets to intercept enemy advances. She made brilliant tactical decisions, but it was not enough. The Scorvan were too strong. The Council military was too weak. The Scorvan strategy was brutal and effective. They overwhelmed defenses with superior numbers. They stripped systems of resources. They took prisoners as slaves. Then they moved on to the next target. The Council's fragmented military structure could not mount an effective defense. Each species wanted to protect their own worlds first. Coordination broke down under the pressure. Frontier systems were abandoned. Core systems prepared for siege. Nexus Station, the great symbol of galactic unity, began evacuation procedures. The unthinkable was happening. The Galactic Council, which had stood for over 10,000 years, was collapsing. High Arbiter Cortex called an emergency session. The chamber was half empty. Many representatives had fled to defend their home worlds. Those who remained looked scared. The question before them was simple and terrible. Should they beg humanity for help? The debate was fierce. Some argued they had no choice. Pride meant nothing if everyone was dead. Others feared humanity would refuse and they would humiliate themselves for nothing. Some worried that if humanity did help, the price would be too high. A few suggested humanity might let the Council fall and then dominate what remained. Councillor Velmora was very old now, nearly 400 years. She had watched all her predictions about humanity fail. She had been wrong about everything. Now she spoke with a humility that surprised everyone. We must ask, she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. Not because we deserve their help. We do not. Not because they owe us anything. They do not. But because trillions of innocent people will die otherwise. People who never chose how we treated humans. If there is any chance they will help, we must try. Ambassador Taeyong stood. He had returned from human space changed by what he saw and learned. Humanity is not motivated by revenge, he said. They are better than we gave them credit for. If we approach them with genuine humility and real commitment to change, they might help. Not for reward, but because it is right. The vote was nearly unanimous. Taeyong would send a message to humanity, but this would not be a formal diplomatic communication. This would be a plea from one civilization to another. Cortex himself recorded the message. He sat alone in his office, the weight of 10,000 years pressing on his shoulders. He spoke directly to Ambassador Murray and to all of humanity. His words were simple and honest. He acknowledged every failure completely. No justifications, no excuses. He admitted that arrogance and prejudice had driven away the one species that could have elevated the entire galaxy. He did not promise reform in exchange for help. He promised reform regardless if any galaxy remained to reform. The message ended simply. The Council does not deserve your help. We never appreciated what you offered in good times. We cannot demand assistance in desperate times, but trillions of innocent beings are going to die. People who never had a voice in how you were treated. If humanity has any compassion left, please help them." The message was sent. Then came the waiting. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2 weeks. The council heard nothing. Systems continued to fall. Evacuations became more desperate. Hope faded. The council prepared for the end. Then a message arrived from human space. It was brief. Just one sentence. "The human expeditionary fleet is en route. Hold the line." The relief was overwhelming, but there was no time to celebrate. The Scorven had reached Nexus Station. Their fleet surrounded the great station like predators circling wounded prey. General Jiwan gathered every remaining council ship for a final defense. It would not be enough, but they would fight anyway. Then space itself seemed to tear open. The human fleet arrived. Over 5,000 warships translated into normal space in perfect formation. They moved with precision and grace. Behind them came carriers, battle stations, and weapon platforms that made Council technology look like ancient relics. Admiral Minho commanded from the flagship Determination. He was 92 years old now, but his mind was sharp as ever. 4 decades of independent military development had refined human tactics to an art form. His orders were clear and confident. The human fleet moved like a single organism. The battle began. Human ships coordinated seamlessly with Council remnants. Their weapons fired with devastating accuracy. Their shields held against attacks that would destroy Council vessels. Their dark matter propulsion allowed maneuvers that seemed impossible. Slowly, the Scorven advance stopped. The battle raged for 3 days. Human ships took casualties. Good people died defending those who had once rejected them. But they fought with courage and skill. They inflicted terrible losses on the Scorven. Thousands of enemy ships were destroyed. The invasion force that seemed unstoppable was being pushed back. On the 4th day, the Scorven retreated. Over half their invasion force was destroyed. It would be decades before they could threaten the galaxy again. Nexus Station was saved. The Council survived. But everything had changed. Ambassador Mireille came to Nexus Station aboard the Determination. She met with Cortex in private. The conversation was frank and honest. Humanity would not rejoin the Council. That chapter was closed forever. But they proposed something different, a new alliance, not as member and overlord. As equals, the terms were simple. The Council must implement real reforms. Species would be judged by contribution and merit, not age or tradition. Voting rights would be equal. Technology development would be free from arbitrary restrictions. If the Council agreed, humanity would establish mutual defense pacts and trade agreements. Cortex accepted immediately. He knew many Council members would resist. Change was always difficult for ancient institutions, but the alternative was extinction. The Scorven had proved the old ways no longer worked. Change was not just necessary, it was survival. The reforms took years. They were painful and slow. Some species refused to accept them and left the Council. Others embraced the changes eagerly. The Council transformed from a hierarchy based on age into something more democratic and fair. It was messy and imperfect, but it was better. Humanity did not gloat or demand special treatment. They simply worked alongside other species as true partners. Human engineers helped rebuild damaged systems. Human doctors shared medical advances. Human scientists collaborated on research. Human diplomats mediated disputes fairly. They did what they always did. But now they were appreciated. Younger species watched and learned. If humans could leave and thrive, others could demand respect too. The Council's rigid structure crumbled slowly. It was replaced by something more just. The galaxy became a place where merit mattered more than age, where different did not mean inferior, where cooperation was based on mutual respect. 50 years after the Exodus, Ambassador Deho attended a ceremony at Nexus Station. He was 117 years old, near the end of his life. The Council was dedicating a memorial to honor humanity's contributions. Every human who died defending the Council was remembered there. Belmora gave a speech. She was ancient now, nearly 400 years old. She admitted her mistakes openly. She told younger generations that prejudice had nearly destroyed everything. She warned them never to judge species by age or dismiss those who seemed weak. Deho was asked to speak. His words were brief. He talked about his faith in humanity's potential, even when no one else believed. He talked about the pain of being dismissed and disrespected. He talked about the pride he felt when humanity chose dignity over revenge. He ended with a simple message. Humanity left in silence not because we were weak, but because we were strong. We did not seek permission to thrive. We did not wait for others to recognize our worth. We built our own future on our own terms, and when the galaxy called for help despite everything, we answered. Because that is who humans are. The ceremony ended. People returned to their lives. The galaxy continued turning. But something fundamental had changed. The Council learned that respect must be earned, not demanded. That tradition without merit becomes tyranny. That the newest voice might have the most important thing to say. Humanity learned that walking away can be the strongest choice. That self-determination is worth any sacrifice. Together, they learned the galaxy is stronger when everyone has a voice. The Council's regret became the catalyst for a better future. Humanity's silence taught a lesson words never could, and no one would forget the day humanity left or the day they returned.